How many people live in cities? Look, total world population is 6 billion. Half world is urban, 3 billion lives in cities. But out of these, 1 billion people lives in slum. About the future. In the year 2050 here, experts predict that world population growth will stop at around 9 billion people. 6 billion will live in urban area. The open question is, can slum be made history? This chart here shows you all the countries of the world. Each bubble is a country. The size of the bubble is the population. The red bubble down there is China. Now, the color of the bubbles shows the continents. You see, the green is the Americans, blue here is the African, and so on. Now, what we are showing here on this axis is the percent urban population of the total population. China here is below 20%, and here it's 60%, and so on. It's easy to understand. On this axis down here, I show economic level of the country. Gross domestic product per person in what is called purchasing power parity. That is the comparable value of the currency of the country. Now, let's look at the situation in the world 1963. Those countries who had the lowest economic level had very little people in the urban area, living in cities. And those countries which had best economy, they had more people living in the urban area. But there was quite a variation. Let's look which one is which. Of course, Singapore is up there. Singapore, everyone lives in the city because it's a city nation. Whereas United States had about 71% of its population living in urban areas. Now I would like to show you the change. How has the world changed from 1963, 64, 65? As we move on here, you can see China and India now having economic growth and people is moving into the urban areas. In the 80s, most of the country bubbles are moving up like this and more people live in the urban area. Look here, 2002, 2004, that's where we are today, the latest statistic available. And it's interesting to see that in the world today, the Americas, if I mark the American countries, those are the bubbles here. This is like Brazil and Mexico. They're very highly urbanized. The whole of Latin America, very highly urbanized. All countries is above about 70% in urban areas. Let me show you the Arab countries in the Middle East. Also, the Arab countries are very highly urbanized, and so are the European countries. In fact, it's only the African countries where we find a low degree of urbanization together with the countries in Asia. The light blue ones here is South Asia. Those bubbles here, that is India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. Most people still live in rural areas, 2004. And even in China, look, this is China. Even in China, we have 40% in the cities and 60% still in the rural areas. So what Anna Tibajuka means with the urban challenge is there is no doubt that the billions of people which will be added to the population in China and India